In this tutorial, you're going to see how to use XL Data Analyst. XL Data Analyst is a free software. It's an add-in which is for Excel and usually is under the add-ins menu. This script allows basic statistical operations and sometimes even some more advanced operations which are very useful for marketing analysis. XL Data Analyst comes free with the textbook and it is very portable. A unique feature of the XL Data Analyst is that it resides in the data file. It doesn't install on a computer, it doesn't install in Excel, it is inside the particular file going together with your data. So it is very portable. You can take your data in an Excel file and if it has the XL Data Analyst, you can save it on a USB drive, you can email it to any person, and they can start analyzing data immediately. The XL Data Analyst is, as said before, under the add-ins menu, and this is how it looks like. It's because it is in a file, you don't really have XL Data Analyst. There is no starting point with it. So to start using XL Data Analyst, you need to open an existing file which already has it. In our particular case, this is the AA concepts car, which already, as you can see, has the XL Data Analyst installed. In XL Data Analyst, you see two worksheets. One is called Define Variables, where all the variables in the file are described and explained, their meaning, their values, their codes, etc. And in the data view, this is where the actual data is. On the first row, you see the names of the variables along with their values, and in the Define Variable view, you see the exact same names. So if you want to know, for example, what reside is, you click on Define Variables view, and you see that reside actually is number of people in a household. Our objective, as said before, is to show how to start using XL Data Analyst with new data. To do so, the first thing is to remove, to clean, to erase the existing data in the file. So let's do that. We'll go to Data, select everything, and just press the delete button. The data is gone. Then we need to remove to delete the description of the data. As you can see, the name of the variables are linked, and because I deleted all variables, now you don't see their names. To delete the description of the data, you must select only the white cells. If you select a column, for example, and you attempt to delete it, it's not going to work. It's a feature of the analyst. So what you have to do, you just select the cells with the description, which are the white cells, not the yellow, not the blue, but the white cells, and just select the descriptions, press the delete button, and it's gone. Now the XL Data Analyst is in an empty file. What you can do, one thing you can do is to save this empty file together with XL Data Analyst under a different name. And let's say I can save it. I can save it on the desktop, and can, for example, write XL Data Analyst empty. And this data file will be empty, and I can start entering data in it every time when I need XL Data Analyst. Alternatively, you can just start entering your new data here. For example, if you know already the names of the variables and the data, you can, for example, enter variable, variable 1, variable 2, etc. And you can start entering the meaning and the values of those these variables. When you look on the other side, you see that it actually is empty. And there is no description here. There are no descriptions here. It's because XL Data Analyst still need to connect the description defined variables view to the data view. To do so, you go to the menu, you click Utilities, and then Clean Up. This cleanup function is very useful because XL Data Analyst, because it's free and it's very portable, etc. Sometimes it's not very sophisticated, and sometimes it may give you errors which you are not familiar with, and it may stop working. So the cleanup function performs some basic checkups here and there to make sure your data is all right and the variables are connected. Anyway, when you click Cleanup, it tells you what is going to check. When you click OK, it does some thinking, and when you click on the Define Variable view, you see that these variables appear here as in our, and now they are linked. So we can start describing it. For example, this is perhaps gender, I'm not sure, it depends on what the objective is, and this may be income or something else. So this is how to enter raw data into XL Data Analyst. But let's imagine you already have data from somewhere. You already have data and you want to start using it, and you want to use it using the XL Data Analyst. To demonstrate how to enter data into XL Data Analyst, I have another file. I'm going to show it to you. This is how it looks like. This data file has 4 variables with only 30 observations each. The first variable is called gender. 1 is male, 2 is female. Familiar is a variable which describes familiarity with internet. Usage is usage of internet in hours per week, so it's weekly usage of internet. And attitude is attitude toward the internet. So 4 variables, very simple data set. And we want to analyze this data. We want to perform some statistical analysis on this data using the data XL Data Analyst. So assuming that you already have the empty XL Data Analyst file, we select our data. We go, click on the data view, and paste it. However, for some reasons, sometimes just pasting the data may not work. However, it always works if you select this function, Keep Source Formatting. On some computers, you can use Ctrl+C and it will paste the data, but I found that on other computers, you must use Keep Source Formatting in order to paste the data into XL Data Analyst. So I'm going to use it, and the data is here. When we click on Define Variables, we see there is nothing here. It's empty because it hasn't been linked yet to the data. To link the definition of the variables to the actual data, we are going to use the cleanup function of XL Data Analyst, which is here. So when I click it, it tells me again what's going to be checked. And when I go to Define Variable view, now I see the meaning of those variables. I mean the names of those variables. And now I'll start describing. I'm gonna describe and populate the Define Variable section with more information. So the variable gender represents gender, and this is my description. This is my label. And in future analysis, when I perform any statistical analysis, this is how the variable will appear. Gender has value codes of 1 and 2. So we enter it by 1, 2. The corresponding values to 1 and 2 are male, no space, female. Now XL Data Analyst knows that 1 corresponds to male and 2 corresponds to female. Familiarity with internet, we should type it. And familiarity with internet, here is the description of our variables, and it ranges from 1 to 7. And we can define all 7 labels with their corresponding names, or just the anchors or the end of the scale. I'm going to define only the end of the scale. So I'm going to define only the meaning of 1 and the meaning of 7, which are the two ends of the scale. 1 will correspond to not familiar, and then comma, no space, very familiar. Now when we look in this variable, we know that this variable takes values between 1 and 7, where 1 corresponds to not familiar and 7 corresponds to very familiar. I usage, as said before, is weekly usage of internet in hours, so this is what I'm going to write. Per week in hours per week. And now we know what this means. Because these are real numbers, there is no need to define their meaning, because we know that 1 is 1 hour, 2 is 2 hours, 5 is 5 hours. These are real numbers. However, these numbers actually are labels. That's why we need to define that 1 means male and 2 means female. However, the hours are hours, nothing to define there. Attitude corresponds to attitude toward the internet. So let's write this, let's type it. And similarly, it ranges between 1 and 7. I know this, and I'm not going to define all 7 labels. I'm just going to define the ends of the scales, and I'm going to define the meaning of 1, 7. So I'm going to define just the two meanings of the scale. So 1 will be very negative. This would be my attitude, corresponding to 1, to very positive. Now, if you want to define more values, it's perfectly possible. We can define 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and these can correspond to very negative, somewhat negative, negative, neutral, somewhat positive, positive, and very positive. We can do this, but this is a shortcut which is more than enough. When we have the data ready, we simply can click the Save button and we should be ready to go. Now the XL Data Analyst is prepped and ready to go. Let's see if it is working. I'm gonna demonstrate how to do some basic analysis. We are going to calculate some averages and percent. Gender is a categorical variable. I'm going to calculate the proportions of males and females in this particular sample. That's why I'm gonna click percent here. For gender, I can select one of the two graphical options, which is 3D pie or 3D cylinder for gender, and when I click OK, I see the proportions of males and females in our particular sample. Let's see if it works for averages. Now let me calculate few averages. When I click averages, it again gives me the names of the variables. Also see that in the text, in the dialog boxes, you see the labels of the variables, the description of the variables which we entered, not the names of the variables. This is much more informative. So familiarity with the internet can be treated as metric. Internet usage in hours is metric. Attitude toward the internet can be treated as metric. All of them are can be used to calculate averages. And when we click OK, we see the averages for these three variables. An XL Data Analyst orders them in the descending order, starting with the highest average, going to the lowest average. These cannot be changed. So this is how to perform basic, this is how to enter data into XL Data Analyst and perform basic statistical operations. When you save the file, it also will save the output. If you do not want to save the output, just delete these two worksheets, and this will be the original data which we entered before. That's it.